Are we live? It still doesn't look like we are. There we go. Okay. All right. So, in this episode, give me one moment, just getting set up here. So, in this podcast episode, I wanted to talk about brushwork and the stages of your brushwork from the beginner stage to the advanced stage. My name is Vita Evenson, and from my tiny little studio, we explore bigger ideas, more creative in the creative realm, and kind of chewing on some more of the thoughts that creative people tend to have if you're anything like me. So I was thinking about brushwork and how brushwork in the beginning stages is very similar to being a toddler, right? You, as a toddler, beginning to learning how to walk, right? A toddler may watch a dancer, but they can't dance, at least not like that. And the two just kind of fit together in my mind. So when I was learning how to paint, I just wanted to get paint on the canvas. I just wanted it to look like whatever it is I was painting. And I was just trying to get the basics down. So in my mind, brushwork was not even a thing. I could watch artists paint, advanced artists, and I knew that the way that they were moving their brush on the canvas was not a haphazard way. It wasn't something that they were just, doing by instinct. I knew that they knew exactly how they were going to lay that particular brush stroke. But it wasn't something that I could use in the beginning stages. So, as any beginner, you start out and you fall, you get up and you fall, you fail again, and hopefully you learn how to fail better, as Pema Chodron so beautifully said. So in painting, we begin using our brush strokes, just applying paint on the canvas, just learning how to put it all together. And that's fine. That's good. That's exactly what you need to do. And the only thing that I would suggest, as I do suggest to my students, is that you stay away from smushing the paint around and blending your brush strokes. To really make an effort, at least put it in your mind's eye that you are laying down a brush stroke, laying down another one, a third one. Okay, you'll probably go to 5, 6, or 7 brush strokes with the same, with the time that you loaded the paint, right? And that's natural and it's normal. And please don't beat yourself up if you're not abiding to the rule of a brush stroke laid is a brush stroke stayed. But at least you have it in your mind. Like when you were a toddler and you got up and you saw people running and you were like, running, cool, I want to do that. But your feet couldn't carry you yet. You didn't have the balance. You couldn't regulate your body yet. As you advance and move forward in your painting, you will begin to connect and regulate and control those brush strokes on a much deeper level. It just comes with experience. Take my word for it. If you are a beginner, that is something that will happen, and it will all just kind of gel together. It'll just come together as you paint and paint and paint and paint. So one thing that you can do that's really, really, really helpful in helping you in the beginning stages and intermediate stages and advanced stages is to use a larger brush than what you think you need. Go big. Because remembering in the beginning stages, when you're first putting together a painting, you do want to keep it loose and somewhat abstract. You're not going in on a blank canvas and going in and doing the form exactly the way you see it. There are applications for that, depending on the type of painting that you're doing. But for what we're talking about here, representational work, loose, loose realism, I guess. I don't know what I would call this type of painting, but even just impressionistic realism. I won't go with a hyper-realism. I don't really know anything about that technique. So I'm leaving that out of this discussion. And, just talking about putting a basic painting together and the brush strokes that you will be using. So use a large brush, because when you use a larger brush, it automatically kind of breaks you out of those self-imposed limitations that we have of, wanting to put everything down detailed and perfect and, not make a mistake. And you got to just get rid of that, because if you're a beginner or an intermediate artist, and if you're an advanced artist, if you're not making mistakes, you're not getting anywhere. So let that go. Let go of all preconceived ego-based ideas about your painting and your ability to paint. Let it go. Take a deep breath. Relax. And grab a big brush and just start making some brush strokes. Just start getting the paint on the canvas. Don't worry about making correct brush strokes or not if you're a beginner, and even as an intermediate artist. Just get paint on the canvas. If you're a toddler, just get up and start walking. Fall down, get up, fall down. You take a few quick steps in a kind of a run, and you fall down and you get up and you try again. It's the same process. So I really want to stress that using a large brush will get you very, very far in this idea of coming at your painting from an abstract, messy place and slowly bringing it in, curving this area and that, and defining more and more and more until you have your painting. And the beginning stages of this is just using a large brush, much larger than what you think. Let loose, be messy. Know that brushwork is an important part of becoming a masterful artist. You don't need it right now if you're in the beginning stages, but know that it's there, and have right there in your mind when you're laying your brushstroke that you're not scrubbing and blending and mushing everything up. And, I talked about that in the previous podcast, but laying down the brushstroke, lay down another one, 3 ideally, right? But if you go 5, it's fine. And, if you go more than that, that's even fine. Come on, let yourself off the hook. But just have it in your mind in the beginning stages. When you do this, it gives you room to explore, and it gives you room to release your ego boundaries and that space of where you feel safe and where you feel like you're not going to do anything wrong, right? When you use a bigger brush, it kind of just breaks all that space away. And yeah, you are going to get messy, and yeah, things are not going to look like a lemon when you're first putting the paint on the canvas and working from large masses to small masses, which is what we want to do. So it's kind of the same thing. If you're a toddler and you're learning how to walk, you're learning the basic steps needed, the body position, the large masses of movement, and working towards becoming a ballet dancer where you have, accurate control and intention of the minor movements. So it's the same thing. I hope you guys can see this. Then we move into the intermediate levels. And what happens there, right? Okay, you have a pretty good handle of how to put a painting together, and you're working through, let's say, the second layer of your painting, of your mastery, of your artistic abilities, of your creativity. You're at the stage where you have things on the canvas. It looks like something, but you are in that middle ground where you're still learning and but you're understanding. So think of it like being a teenager, right? Where you are pretty adept at moving. You can run, you can play soccer, you can dance, you can ice skate, you can do all these things. But you're definitely not, if we're going with the dancing thing, you're not an advanced dancer yet. You may be learning ballet and doing your pliés and working on your posture and getting everything all set up, but you're still not out on a stage dancing and being completely in tune with the moment of the dance, with all the things that you have learned, with your body almost moving on its own. And so in this intermediate stage of painting, you are aware of brushstrokes, and you can look at somebody else's artwork and say, okay, they did that brushstroke there, why? And maybe make the necessary connections so that you can begin to use them in your work as well. So you begin to feel more comfortable in the stages of releasing your control over things. You may begin to feel more, you begin to feel freer in that place of unknowing, in that place of large masses, and understanding that you will bring it together. You will begin to define the shadow area more, and the form, and it, some of that abstract, massive block-in of large masses will begin to be defined. And still, though, you might not be able to know exactly what kind of brushstroke you're going to use where. So you're still in that stage of exploring and understanding and learning and growing. And, that's, for me, that was a very long stage. in my own personal journey, especially with brushwork. Brushwork has been a very, very difficult learning and understanding for me, and so it was a space of just getting to the point of understanding why I would use this brushstroke here, or how I would bring the eye through the brushstroke, moving it through and around my canvas, depending on what I was painting, if it was the sky or a cloud or, some grass coming up, right? And just kind of edging off and pointing in the direction of the focal point. There's all these little tips and tricks that you can use your brushwork for. In the intermediate stages, much like the later beginning stages, beginner, intermediate in there, you do know that if you have a thick impasto brushstroke in your shadow area of the form, let's say a lemon, that if it's in the cast shadow area, it's going to pick up light from whatever light is in the room, sunlight, depending on the time of day, and will not create an effective cast shadow. And even the shadow, that's closest to the subject still needs to be flat. As you move out into the outer areas of the shadow, the one where much more reflected light is coming in, you can use some more impasto brush strokes to pick up certain things. But even so, if you're in the beginner intermediate stages, I would just keep them flat and thin to help emulate shadows. On a personal level, taking my studio life and the things I learn in my studio into my personal life, I personally want to keep my own shadow areas, my own fears, very flat, very thin. I don't want to give them too much impasto so that they can begin to reflect and grow and get too big, right? So when you move into the advanced levels of your brushwork, of becoming an artist, you are now in the stage where everything that you have learned has come together, and your brushwork is now an immediate tool that you have at your fingertips. And depending on where you are in the painting, depending on what you're trying to do, what you want, what message you want to give to the viewer, how you want to depict the form, all of these things come together and you just know what to do. You know what brush to use, if it's going to be a synthetic brush or a hog bristle brush or a sable, and you just know where to put that brush stroke, how much paint should be on the brush, how much impasto you want. I mean, are you going to do thin layers one on top of the other, or you're going to do more impasto strokes? And the direction of the brush stroke will play a role because you know how light will hit the painting, and depending on the impasto of the brush stroke, the light will create an effect that will either be for the overall effect of this painting of yours, or will work detrimentally. I mean, it will be a subtle detriment and maybe not noticeable to regular folk, people who aren't artists and don't know these these deeper levels of putting a painting together. But you will know how to use your brushstroke, how much of it to use, how thick you want the paint. I mean, everything just kind of comes together. And a lot of that, the more advanced that you get, it just happens automatically. And so by the time you're an advanced artist, your brushstrokes are, in fact, the ballet of your canvas. It is the delicacies, the pirouettes, the leaps into the air, and the graceful, gentle landings coming back down. And it's quite a different stage from the toddler stage where, you know, you're fumbling, you're falling, you're failing, you're getting up and fumbling again. You take a few really great steps and then down you go and fumbling, and you know how it just keeps going. And you grow and you become more advanced and you have better control and everything comes together until you can step out on that stage and dance a fabulous performance. And it is what you can do in your creative world, on your canvas, or writing your book, or any other kind of creative endeavor that you are on. So in the same kind of way, right? In the studio, in this little tiny studio here on this little tiny Greek island, this is my space where I learn how to paint and grow as an artist. And at the same time, I take the lessons that I learn in my studio and bring them into my own life. So what are the brushstrokes of my life? And part of the what I was thinking about while I was putting together this podcast episode was that decision making for me was my weak spot throughout most of my life. You know, making a decision. You know, do I want to have coffee or tea? Sometimes was a difficult decision for me. And so in the same way, I began to explore my lack of decision-making abilities to my lack of understanding of brushwork as a beginner artist. And then when I became more intermediate at understanding the brushwork or the decision-making, I got better and better at it, understood it more, felt more comfortable, and have moved into this space and realm of making more concise decisions. I'm still not there, but I'm getting there. So I make more concise decisions. I just go with it, and my life is becoming more of my masterpiece. I mean, what I express and paint onto the canvas of my life. So for example, in the beginning, right, I would sit and I couldn't decide if I wanted tea or coffee. It's true. I mean, it's true. I could sit there in the kitchen and wonder for a long time what it is that I wanted to drink. And so becoming aware of my inability to make decisions. I mean, if I couldn't decide if I wanted tea or coffee, can you imagine on the bigger decisions that I needed to make in my life? I couldn't do them, right? And so as a result, I slipped into just not making decisions and letting other people make the decisions. And then I would just go along with it. And, it was a great detour, which kind of seemed to get me where I wanted to go. But they weren't my decisions, and so they weren't my brushstrokes. And I hope I'm not being too abstract here. I hope you're getting some of this. There are other people out there thinking like I do. And so the more I practiced, do I want coffee or tea? And then, do I want the Ethiopian coffee or do I want Peruvian coffee over, more difficult decisions that I had to make? When I got good at just making a decision, whether it was a right decision or a wrong decision, I got better, moved into the intermediate stage where I could see that I needed to make a certain brushstroke decision in my life. And rather than smushing it around and blending and smudging it, or just like stepping back and letting somebody else make the brushstroke for me on my canvas, I just made the brushstroke anyways. And the more I did that, of course, the more mistakes I made, but the better I got, and the more I was able to layer on top of the pre-done mistakes, or, just things that didn't work out as well as I wanted them to. And then I got better and better and better. And I still sometimes have a difficult time making a decision. Like I mentioned, I think on a previous podcast, I haven't quite come up with the right title for this podcast, but my first inspiration was tiny studio, big ideas, because in this little tiny space, I have thoughts like these and make connections in my life that are much greater than this little itty bitty space of my studio. But this little tiny studio is the seed from which I grow, and so that makes sense to me. And so I started with that, and then I thought, no, I should do like a painting Greece because I'm in Greece and I should bring the Greek aspect in. And then I'd like, no, maybe not. Maybe I'll find a better name. So I'm still vacillating on that one, but I'm still here creating the podcast, no matter what the name is. And that is the important decision. That is the brushstroke of my life. So with that, I want you beginner artists to understand that you need to know what brushworks are. You need to know what you're doing. You need to at least see that you're blending and smushing around and trying to control your brushwork or control the paint by flattening it all out and things like that. Just understand that that's what you're doing, if that is what you're doing. And most beginners do. And then just know that, like a toddler, you may see somebody dancing or running or twirling around, and you're not able to do it yet, but you know it's possible. And so you have that with you as you're learning and growing, and as you're taking these large masses and just beginning to become more composed in your artwork and bringing it into a final level of detail and of getting control of how you want to conduct this orchestra, the orchestra of colors, of the viscosity of the paint, of your brushwork, of the composition and design. All these things come together, and you are in control. And that takes many years for people to get to that level. And it's the journey that is the joy reaching higher levels of artistry. And even when you get to the advanced level, hon, you're not done. I mean, then you really begin to see all the other areas that you were never able to see before in the intermediate and beginner stages, and you begin to work through those. I mean, you can be painting your entire life, be a master artist by the time you're 20, and if you live to be 80, you'll still be learning. So that's what I love about being a painter, being an artist, because it's just like life. No matter how long you live, there's always something new to learn, always a deeper area to dive into, always some kind of border or boundary to step over and expand from. And that is the beauty of life on this little tiny Greek island. So thank you so much for listening this far. I wish you a happy painting, and stay tuned for our next podcast that will be coming up on Tuesday. Have a great, great day.